Hello and thank you for joining me. I'm Heather Forgan of stampwithnellie.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the UK. Today I'm going to be creating a card using the Perfectly Pears stamps and die bundle, along with some Fluid 100 watercolor paper and a small selection of watercolor pencils and a water painter. And this is the card that I have already made, and I'm going to make one pretty much the same. These products, these stamps and dies, are from a suite called Perfectly Pears that does also come with fabulous designer series paper, ribbon and embellishments, and I have created a card with all of those elements already. This is a blog only project. Just in case you're not aware, I often share projects on my blog that don't actually make it onto my YouTube, either because they're straightforward enough, or I just made them because I wanted to play around and didn't want the pressure of doing that on video. So this is one of them. You can check out the rest on stampwithnellie.com. Okay, so back to today. To stamp that pear image, I used Stays On, and I've covered that in a recent video as well, where I used Stays on window sheet. It's perfect for watercolor because it's solvent based and therefore doesn't get smudged with your water. I have already, no I haven't, I thought I had already stamped that. I meant to already stamp that. I had a problem with my video earlier, so this is take two. It could be one of those days. So yeah, you can use this stamp to just stamp over that to colour it, but I wanted to play around with watercolour pencils because I haven't done it for ages. So I need that outline stamped back out of there. And just pop that onto a block and then use my Stays On. Let me clear this just now and bring in a scrap. Here's one I'd cut previously. So your Stays On has this little protective layer. Keep that, make sure that you put that on again. Right, I'm just making sure I've got plenty of ink on that. Like so. And then pop it down, give it a moment, and then peel it off. That's actually taken some off the paper up. Not happy with that. Bear with me a moment, I will try again. That's better. Okay, so put that back on. It does say protective cover, do not discard. And then that goes on top. Okay, I will just pause the video, allow that to dry, and I'm going to clean that stamp with my Stays On cleaner and get back to you in a second. Okay, so I have now cleaned that with Stays On cleaner, took it off with a tissue and then cleaned my stamp as normal to get rid of any remaining Stays On cleaner. And then I can just pop that back in there. And we're now back to where I thought we were originally. Okay, so I'm going to sit down to do this. I was standing there. Right, so colouring. I'm going to show you a photograph of my inspiration. And this is it. These pears are on a tree in our community garden, and it's absolutely laden this year. And you can see that you've got reddish, brownish, mottled bits on them. So that was my inspiration for this colour scheme here. Okay, so I've got Cajun Craze to put down the bottom there. I've got Garden Green, Old Olive, and that is Granny Apple Green. I'm using a water painter brush. They come in a pack of 3 with different thickness of the brush on them. There's a nice wide one for a watercolour wash, this nice pointed one, and a kind of intermediate one in there as well. So you fill up this barrel with water, give it a little push, and water will come down there, and you can use that on our water painting. Okay, let's get on with it. I did an initial one with cherry cobbler, but when I blended it, it seemed a little bit too pink. In fact, this one here that I played around with, the smaller image, shows how pink it went, and that's not really what I was going for. So tried Cajun Craze, and it's much better. So I'm just scribbling that on lightly. Okay, then add some Garden Green, a little bit around there as well, and Old Olive. Hoping this is going to be okay actually, because when I turned that over, realised I've die cut that and it's got lots of lines in it. So we'll see what happens, eh? And then some, a little bit of Old Olive up there. Right, so it looks like it's been coloured by a 3-year-old. Once again, just get that water flowing. Okay, so it's just a bit of water on the brush, and I'm just doing kind of swirly movements to blend those together. Not fussy if I go over the lines, just as well, because I have. And we're just moving those colours around, blending them, creating new colours. And you definitely get that kind of mottled feel to it, like that. Okay, so that's nice enough as it is, but I want it to be a little bit more bold than that. So what I'm going to do is try that, because, and I will show you this, if I add my watercolour pencils on while it is wet, it goes really, really dark, and then it's difficult to blend out. Needs a fair bit of work to stop that being a really dark line. You can still see it. So dry it first, and then I can add a bit more colour. Okay, it's nice and dry now, so I am gonna add a little bit more colour down there and blend that out. Hopefully that'll disguise that mark. I'm going to add a little bit of that there actually this time. Blend that out. I think I'm okay with that. Maybe just a tiny bit up here. There we go. And I think I'll go a little bit more garden. No, that was old olive. A little bit more garden. And there, a bit here. Not got much of that on there. And we'll just give that a good wash. Really blend them in. I appreciate that this probably isn't as fun to watch as it is to do. But hopefully you like the end result. Okay, so I've not got that too damp, but I will give it a quick blast. Okay, and then I'm going to add in some little spots. Now there is a stamp here that you could use to do that. I actually used that in the background of my card, so we will use that, but just not for this. All I did was put in some little dots like that. If you find that you've done any of them a little too harsh, then again, just come in with your painter and dab that. But I quite like them. Happy with that. That needs to be die cut with this die here. And just line that up. And I'll need a bit of washi tape. Just take the excess tack off the washi tape. And pop that one there like that. And I'm just going to die cut that. But we've got another couple of elements that I want to add a bit of colour to as well. So those were created with this die here and this die here, again with Fluid 100 watercolour paper. I'm taking one green and just adding a bit of colour on the flat bit of the leaf. I'll take a different colour, add it to the kind of stripy bit. Like that. Again, just adding that colour, not paying much attention to it, and then I've got my Cajun Craze again to just add a bit of colour to that branch. And again we go in with the watercolour. Right. The water painter rather. Just blend out that branch. Clean that off. That water is now running clear. And just blend that around. think watercolor pencils are kind of magical. Doesn't matter how rubbish it looks. Once you've added water, it always looks so much better. Okay, again, let's just clear that green off because I want to come in with Flirty Flamingo, and I'm just going to put that on the centre of these little flowers. And just add that faint tinge of pink. That you would see on Blossom. Okay, so we've got that ready, we've got that, done all that, die cut that, and I'll be back in a second. Right, so let's gently peel that back and that off. Okay. We have the elements of our card. We just need to decide where we're going to put it. I think I'm going to put it a bit further down on this one. No particular reason, just because I want it to be slightly different. Stamping with Bubble Bath. I have that lovely floral stamp. So if that's where I'm going, I want to just stamp that around. Like that. And then these bits go in the centre. I'm not quite sure which way around. That way, I think. You're not going to see most of this anyway. There we go. It's so pretty and delicate, isn't it? So we'll have that here. And we'll have that there. And our little blossom bit there. So I want those speckles to be around about there. Let's start up here. Out there a little. Not sure you'll see any of those, but that'll do. Okay, and then my hello, I'm going to stamp with Old Olive. I'll put one there, one there, and one there. Pretty. Okay, so let's just get some glue and pop that branch on. Now I've just added a bit too much glue there, so I've got a cocktail stick just to add that there. And on my other one, I'm going to do the same again. I added a mini dimensional to one of the top leaves. So we've got a little bit of dimension there. Just make sure I've got that in between those stamped words. So it's flat down there, but because of that dimensional there, you've got a little bit more height going on there. These going to go on with with dimensionals as well. I'm going to use the standard size ones though. Yeah, I've taken that in a little bit there because I'm going to tuck those little flowers underneath a little. There we go. if you're not entirely sure where you're going to put things on dimensionals, a little bit of glue on there gives you even more time to play. I could still take that up and move it if I wanted to, like that. Okay, and this, a little bit of glue. Just move that around with a cocktail stick. It's going to go there, like so. And my final touch was some iridescent, no, they're not iridescent, they're foiled. Oh, they are iridescent foil gems. And I'll go one there, that one there, let's put a big one there, like that this time. So I've got 2 cards, very similar, using the Perfectly Pears stamp set and dies, and some watercolor paper and watercolor pencils for a nice soft look. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have, please give me a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, I'd love for you to click on that subscribe button and click the bell and get a notification the next time I upload a tutorial. Until then, please do take care. Bye bye.